The Texas evening was folding itself into quiet gold when I first heard her cry. One of those fragile sounds the wind almost carries away before you're certain it was real. The plain stretched wide and patient under the dying sun, dust glowing like old memories, the scent of dry sage lingering in the warm air. My horse, Jasper, slowed before I asked him to. Animals often hear sorrow before men admit it exists. That was when I saw her. She sat at the edge of the long road as though the earth itself had gently set her down and forgotten to pick her back up. Bare feet dusty, dress hem torn by miles or misfortune, shoulders trembling in small, exhausted waves. Her face was turned away at first, but grief has a sound that needs no introduction. It wasn't loud, not dramatic, just steady, like a heart learning it has to beat alone. I dismounted slowly. Out here, sudden movements feel like accusations. She flinched anyway. "I ain't here to harm you," I said softly. My voice sounded older than I felt, or maybe younger than my memories. No answer, only the wind brushing her tangled hair across tear-streaked cheeks. I offered water before questions. A canteen extended, palm open, patience first. After a long moment, she took it with shaking hands. Drank carefully, like someone who had learned that even small comforts could disappear without warning. "Name's Caleb Mercer," I added, because silence sometimes grows kinder once it knows what to call you. Her voice came thin but steady. "Lila Mae Carter." And then nothing. But names are beginnings. The sky deepened toward amber blue as she explained, in fragments rather than sentences, that the man she'd come west with, fiancé, she said after hesitation, had left her that morning when their money ran dry. No fight, no dramatic farewell, just absence, a kind of abandonment colder than anger. I didn't ask why. People rarely leave for only one reason, and those reasons are seldom neat enough for roadside explanations. "You shouldn't stay here after dark," I said. "Coyotes get bold." She nodded but didn't move. Fear and exhaustion had made her heavy, so I offered the only practical mercy I knew. "Town's 6 miles. You can ride with me. No obligations. Just safer than the road." The hesitation that crossed her face wasn't distrust alone. It was pride fighting survival. Eventually survival won, though pride didn't vanish. It simply sat straighter in the saddle behind me. We rode mostly in silence. The rhythm of Jasper's hooves filled spaces words might have crowded. Now and then I sensed her gripping tighter when the trail dipped or shadows shifted. Each time, I kept my voice calm, describing the road ahead like someone narrating weather rather than danger. The plains at dusk can feel endless in a lonely way. But that evening, oddly, the silence felt shared rather than empty. Town lights flickered to life just as the last sunlight drained away. And with them came the other predictable thing, curiosity. Frontier towns survive on cattle, trade, and gossip in roughly equal measure. Zeke Crowder spotted us first near the livery. His eyebrows climbed halfway to his hat brim. "Well now, Caleb Mercer bringing company," he muttered loudly enough for anyone within 20 paces. "That's new." I ignored him. Gossip dries up quicker when not watered. Still, whispers followed us. Lila heard them. I could tell by the slight tightening in her shoulders. Shame is a heavy saddle, especially when you're already tired. Martha Bellamy at the boarding house hesitated when I asked for a room for Lila. Martha's a good woman, but good people in small towns often balance kindness against reputation. "She's alone?" Martha asked carefully. "Yes, ma'am." A pause. Calculations. Then a softer sigh. "All right, just for a few nights." I paid in advance before Lila could protest. Not charity. Insurance against further humiliation. Outside, Sheriff Amos Whitaker tipped his hat, expression thoughtful but not unfriendly. "Everything all right, Caleb?" "It is now," I replied, and I meant it more than expected. That first night, Lila sat on the boarding house porch while the town settled into its evening hush. I joined her only after making sure she wouldn't feel cornered. Some silences invite company, others need guarding. She spoke first. "He didn't even argue," she said. "Just left, like I weighed nothing." The confession wasn't dramatic. It was weary, honest in a way that suggested she hadn't allowed herself to fully say it until then. I told her about Abigail, my wife, not the details of her passing, just the absence afterward. The way a home echoes differently when laughter stops. Loss recognizes loss without needing identical stories. We didn't comfort each other directly, but something eased. Over the next days, healing began in small, nearly invisible ways. I'd leave extra food parcels near the boarding house steps without comment. She started helping Martha, first sweeping floors, then cooking, then greeting travelers with a cautious but genuine smile. Town opinion shifted slowly, like weather patterns. Some folks softened. Others, like Zeke, held on to suspicion as though it were entertainment. Lila overheard enough whispers to bruise confidence, but not enough to break it. That balance, I suspect, forged her strength. One afternoon, I found her struggling with worn-out boots behind the stable. Saul's nearly gone. Next morning, repaired boots appeared where she'd left them. No note, just stitching done carefully. She understood the gesture without forcing things. That quiet understanding built something words might have complicated. Weeks passed. She began laughing occasionally, soft, surprised laughs, as if rediscovering a forgotten language. I caught myself listening for that sound more than I expected, and yet I stayed cautious. Grief teaches restraint. You don't rush new attachments when you've buried old ones. One dawn I stood outside the ranch house watching sunlight roll over the fields like a blessing nobody quite deserved but everybody needed. I realized the heaviness I'd carried since Abigail's death had shifted slightly. Not gone, just lighter. Across the yard, Lila was helping Martha's nephew load supplies. She looked up briefly. Our eyes met. No smiles, no grand moment. Just recognition. Two people who had both known abandonment in different forms, slowly learning that presence, steady, patient presence, might be the rarest kindness the world offers. And as the sun climbed, I understood something simple yet unsettling. Sometimes saving another soul doesn't feel heroic at all. Sometimes it feels quiet, uncertain, and strangely like being saved yourself. Morning light came gently over the Mercer Ranch after that. Not the harsh blaze Texas sometimes favors, but a soft gold that seemed to give everything time to wake properly. Lila took to those mornings first. I'd often find her already outside, sleeves rolled, hair loosely tied back, moving with the quiet focus of someone rebuilding herself piece by piece. She never acted like the ranch owed her refuge. That mattered. Pride remained intact, only steadier now. She mended tack, learned the rhythm of feeding horses, and discovered how sunrise feels different when you're no longer running from yesterday. Folks in town began noticing the change. Martha spoke warmly of her cooking. Travelers remembered her kindness. Even Sheriff Whitaker tipped his hat with more certainty these days. Only Z. Crowder kept his skepticism polished and ready, but gossip grows tired when it lacks fresh scandal. Still, whispers leave traces. Lila heard enough to remind her that belonging isn't granted overnight. Yet instead of shrinking, she worked. Quiet resilience became her answer. Those weeks did something to me too. I started telling stories again, small ones first. About Abigail's laugh. About early ranch days. Lila never pressed for details. She simply listened. Funny how being heard can loosen knots grief ties inside man. Our connection never announced itself. It grew in glances across the pasture, in shared coffee at dusk, in the comfortable silence two lonely people sometimes earn together. No declarations, just presence. Then one afternoon, the past rode back into town. I saw him before Lila did. A thin man with restless eyes and dust-coated boots. The kind of fellow who measures people for usefulness before humanity. Sheriff Whitaker stood nearby, cautious already. Lila froze when she recognized him. Her former fiancé. The man who had left her on that empty road like forgotten baggage. Town attention gathered quickly. Gossip always smells unfinished stories. Zeke hovered close, eager for drama. The man spoke first, voice slick with false familiarity. Lila Mae didn't expect you'd land so comfortably. She didn't step back. That was the first sign of how much she'd changed. I landed on my own feet, she said calmly. He hinted at money owed, obligations imagined, futures he still believed he controlled. Old tactics. Shame, pressure, manipulation. But shame had lost its grip on her. No, she answered simply. Not loud, not trembling, just final. I stayed beside her, not speaking. Support sometimes means refusing to overshadow someone else's courage. The sheriff eventually intervened, suggesting the man move along unless he had lawful business. The crowd dispersed slowly, disappointment evident. Drama denied is poor entertainment. Yet tension lingered like distant thunder. Days passed uneasy. Lila remained composed, though I caught her watching horizons more carefully. Healing doesn't erase fear, it teaches coexistence. Then came the storm. Texas storms arrive with a kind of theatrical patience. Dark clouds stacking quietly until suddenly the sky feels too heavy to hold itself. That evening wind pressed hard against the barn doors. Horses restless, air thick with electricity. I was securing tack when shouting cut through the thunder. Her former fiancé again. Drunk this time. Desperate. Angry. Refusing to accept the life that had moved on without him. A startled horse reared nearby. One wrong movement could have meant serious injury. Storm, animals, emotions, a volatile mix. But Lila stepped forward before I could. Not recklessly. Carefully. Voice low, steady, the way you calm frightened livestock. You don't belong here anymore, she told him. And neither does the past you're dragging. No insults. No rage. Just dignity. That seemed to disarm him more than anger would have. Sheriff Whitaker arrived moments later, rain beginning to fall in heavy drops. The man was escorted away. Not violently, just firmly, the way closure sometimes happens in real life. Yet in those tense minutes, watching lightning flash across her face, I realized how deeply fear of losing her had rooted itself inside me. That startled me more than the storm. When quiet finally returned, she stood trembling slightly. Not from fear alone, from release. From knowing she'd faced the ghost that once defined her and remained standing. You did good, I said quietly. She exhaled, almost a laugh. I just stopped running. After that night, town perception shifted decisively. Courage witnessed publicly carries weight. Even Zeke's gossip softened into reluctant respect. People greeted her by name now, not speculation. Life settled again. Ranch routines resumed. But something fundamental had changed, not in circumstance, but in how we both carried ourselves within it. One evening weeks later, sunset painted the fields in soft amber. Lila stood near the fence, wind teasing loose strands of hair. Peace looked natural on her now. You don't owe the past anything anymore, I told her. The words had been forming for a while. They finally felt ready. She didn't respond immediately, just nodded, eyes bright but calm. Some understandings don't require elaboration. We never rushed what grew between us. Affection matured through seasons. Shared work, mutual trust, small kindnesses repeated until they formed something sturdy. Romance, if that's what it was, felt less like ignition and more like dawn. Gradual, dependable, quietly beautiful. And if you're listening to this memory now, friend, maybe it's because some part of you knows that dusty road feeling too. The moment life seems to leave you behind without explanation. If there's one thing the years have taught me, it's this. Dignity returns slowly, often carried by simple acts of grace. A stranger stopping, a hand offered without demand, a choice to stand again despite whispers. Healing rarely arrives loud, but when it comes, it changes everything. And sometimes, without realizing it, the person you help along the road ends up guiding you home as well.